Religion often presents itself as something noble, something that guides humanity, gives comfort, and connects us to something greater than ourselves. That's the image it wants to project. But if we look more carefully, if we strip away the rituals, the poetry, and the endless repetition of tradition, what we find beneath it all is one very simple, very human impulse: narcissism. The idea that we, out of everything in existence, are the center of the universe. That somehow, the story of everything, the galaxies, the stars, the billions of years of cosmic history, was written just for us. Religion takes this feeling of self-importance and amplifies it to a scale that no individual ego could ever achieve on its own. Let's think about it step by step. At its core, most religions tell us the same basic thing. The universe was made with us in mind. Think about how absurd that is. We live on one tiny planet orbiting one average star, among hundreds of billions in one galaxy, which itself is one out of trillions. And yet religions insist that all of this vastness was put here with a specific focus on humans. Not bacteria, not plants, not any of the countless other forms of life that came before us, or may exist elsewhere. No, it's all about us. That is the ultimate narcissistic fantasy. Take Christianity as an example. It tells us that God created the heavens and the earth, and in that story, all of creation builds up to the moment when humans arrive. And not only are we the grand finale, but God himself supposedly becomes human to walk among us, suffer with us, and save us. Think about how much that inflates our importance. Out of all the possible beings across an infinite universe, the Creator supposedly cares about our mistakes, our rituals, and our behavior in bed. That's not humility. That's a level of self-absorption no individual could pull off without sounding delusional. But when it's packaged as religion, suddenly it's seen as profound. Islam tells a similar story. Humanity is supposedly the best of God's creation, placed on earth as stewards. Angels in Islamic tradition are even commanded to bow to humans. Again, this is the kind of flattering narrative that strokes the ego on a cosmic level. And then the rules of life, what to eat, what to wear, how to wash, are elevated to divine significance, as if the creator of galaxies spends time worrying about whether you face the right direction while praying. The scale of the universe makes these concerns laughably trivial, but religion convinces people they matter deeply. Hinduism also assigns humanity a central role in the cosmic drama of karma and rebirth. The entire cycle of existence revolves around human behavior, human choices, human paths toward enlightenment. Once again, the message is that the universe is not indifferent, but is somehow structured with us at its center. This kind of thinking is so obviously narcissistic when you step back from it. Imagine a child who believes their parents built the entire house, bought every piece of furniture, and arranged every detail just so they could play in their bedroom. That's how religion treats the cosmos. Everything is here because of us, for us, and about us. That's not humility before creation. It's self-importance disguised as devotion. And what happens when people internalize this belief that they are the center of the universe? They begin to see their group, their tribe, their nation, and their religion as uniquely favored by God. This is where the narcissism of religion spills over into arrogance and division. The Jews are the chosen people. Christians are the saved ones. Muslims are part of the Ummah, the one true community. Hindus are born into their caste as a reflection of divine order. It's always about who is special, who is chosen, who is elevated above the rest. That's narcissism institutionalized. Now let's compare this to how science looks at us. Science tells us that we are one species among millions on a tiny planet orbiting an average star. We're not the center of anything. We're a brief moment in the 13.8 billion year history of the universe. That perspective is humbling. It strips away the flattering stories and forces us to confront reality. But religion rejects this humility because it doesn't feed the ego. It clings to stories where we are special, loved, chosen, watched over, judged, and destined for eternity. Because that's what narcissism craves, to never be insignificant, to never be just another creature, but always the star of the show. Look at how religions handle death. Instead of accepting the natural fact that all life ends, religions promise us eternal life. Christianity says you will live forever in heaven. Islam says paradise awaits, full of pleasures and rewards. Hinduism and Buddhism promise reincarnation until you reach some higher state. It's always about us continuing, about our story never ending. That is the purest narcissism. The refusal to accept that we are temporary, that we vanish, that the universe goes on without us. Religion says no. You are so important that even death must bow to you. You will live forever. What better way to flatter the ego than to tell it that it never dies? Now think about morality under religion. Instead of seeing good and bad as human choices shaped by empathy, society, and reason, religion tells us morality comes from God. That means our actions are not just human, but cosmically significant. Every little thing you do is watched, judged, and recorded by the creator of the universe. Again, think of the ego boost. Imagine believing that the infinite creator of galaxies is watching you every moment, caring about what you eat, who you sleep with, whether you swear, or whether you bow 5 times a day. That's not humility. That's a belief system that makes your personal behavior the center of divine concern. That is narcissism on steroids. And this narcissism doesn't stop with individuals. Entire nations use religion to inflate their sense of importance. In America, many Christians believe the United States is specially blessed by God. In the Middle East, nations see themselves as chosen to defend or spread the faith. In India, Hindu nationalists view their religion as proof of their superior place in the world. When groups see themselves as central to God's plan, it justifies arrogance, conflict, and oppression. Why compromise, why empathize, when you believe you're divinely favored? That's how narcissism turns toxic. But here's the thing. Religion isn't honest about its narcissism. It pretends to be humble. People bow, kneel, pray, and say they are nothing before God. But look closer. When they pray, what do they ask for? Help me, forgive me, bless me, protect my family, save my soul. Even worship itself is framed as something that benefits you. You obey, you worship, and in return you are rewarded with paradise, forgiveness, blessings. That's not selflessness, that's transactional. It's self-interest hidden behind rituals of humility. The narcissism is just dressed up to look like devotion. Think of how religion views the end of the world. In Christianity and Islam, the apocalypse is not just a random cosmic event. It's a stage where God comes to settle accounts, judge humanity, and reward or punish. The universe itself ends not because of entropy or physics, but because our story needs closure. Even the destruction of stars and planets is framed as being about us. The narcissism is so deep that even the end of time revolves around humanity's role. And what about how religion deals with suffering? Instead of accepting that bad things happen because of chance, nature, or human cruelty, religion often reframes suffering as meaningful. God has a plan. It's a test. It's to make you stronger. Again, it centers the human experience. Instead of realizing that earthquakes, diseases, and disasters are indifferent to us, religion insists they are tailored for us, lessons written just for us. That is once again a kind of self-centered thinking. The cosmos is not random, it's always about you. This is the pattern everywhere. Religion takes ordinary human narcissism and magnifies it to a cosmic scale. Instead of saying, I'm special, it says we're special. Instead of saying, I don't want to die, it says we will never die. Instead of saying, I want meaning, it says the universe was made for us. And the result is a worldview that flatters us endlessly while pretending to humble us. That is why religion is the ultimate narcissism. One of the clearest signs of religion's narcissism is how it constantly rewrites the story of the universe to keep humans at the center, even when reality pushes us out of it. Take the history of science. For centuries, religion insisted the earth was the center of everything. The sun, the moon, the stars, all of it revolved around us. Why? Because the idea that we might just be on one planet orbiting an ordinary star was too much for the ego to handle. When Copernicus, Galileo, and others showed that the earth orbits the sun, religion fought back. Not because the evidence was bad, but because the idea was insulting. How dare anyone suggest we are not the center? That reaction wasn't about truth. It was about wounded pride. Even after science made it undeniable that the earth is not the center of the universe, Religion kept shifting the story to hold on to human importance. Okay, maybe we're not the physical center, but we're still the spiritual center. We're still the only ones who matter to God. That's the trick. No matter how much evidence piles up, religion always finds a way to sneak us back into the middle of everything. It's like a person who can't stand being ignored, and will always find a way to make the conversation about them. This also shows up in the way religions view other life forms. For most of history, people assumed humans were unique creations, separate from animals. Religion said God made animals for us, to eat, to ride, to sacrifice. The idea that humans might be just another species that evolved like everything else was unthinkable. When Darwin showed that we share ancestors with apes, religions panicked. They mocked the idea of humans being just animals. Why? Because it punctured the ego. It shattered the story that we were made special, separate, chosen. Religion could not tolerate the idea that humans are simply one branch on the tree of life. Again, it wasn't about evidence. It was about protecting the narcissistic fantasy. Even today, you see the same thing. Many religious believers dismiss the possibility of intelligent life elsewhere in the universe. Or if they accept it, they immediately twist it into another ego boost. Maybe aliens exist, but God still loves us most. Or Jesus would visit their planet too. No matter what the discovery, the story has to loop back to us being special. That's the religious instinct. Never let go of the spotlight. Now let's look at how religion treats gender. In many traditions, men are told they are leaders, rulers, the image of God, while women are helpers, supporters, or temptations. This too is narcissism. It's not about truth. It's about one group inflating itself at the expense of another. When religious men say women must cover up, obey, or stay silent, it's not humility. It's arrogance wrapped in divine authority. The same ego-driven pattern is there, just shifted from humanity versus the universe to men versus women. Religion always finds a way to flatter some group as the chosen ones. The same happens with nations and ethnic groups. The Old Testament says the Jews are God's chosen people, given land and divine protection. Christians later said they replaced the Jews as the true chosen. Muslims claim their community is the one true nation under God. Hindus tie divine order to caste and birth. Each group claims to be the center of divine attention. That's not humility before a vast universe. That's tribal narcissism expanded into theology. We can see this clearly in history. Think about the Crusades. European Christians marched thousands of miles to reclaim Jerusalem because they believed it was theirs by divine right. They slaughtered entire populations along the way, convinced they were instruments of God's will. That's not humility. That's arrogance fueled by the belief that your tribe is the center of the universe. The same happened with Islamic conquests, where armies spread across continents believing they were carrying the one true faith, destined to dominate. Again, narcissism masquerading as destiny. Even colonization was wrapped in religious narcissism. European empires didn't just conquer for wealth. They claimed they were bringing salvation, spreading the true faith to heathens. They destroyed cultures and languages, all while congratulating themselves for doing God's work. The underlying message was always the same. Our religion, our people, our way of life is superior, and the whole world revolves around us. It was cosmic narcissism turned into politics. Now let's zoom into the individual level again. Think about prayer. Millions of people believe the creator of the universe listens to their private requests. Imagine the scale of that ego boost. Out of billions of galaxies, countless stars, and an unimaginable span of time, the Creator is supposedly tuning in to hear you ask for a promotion, good weather, or your team to win a game. That's not humility, that's narcissism disguised as piety. People laugh at children who think their parents' lives revolve entirely around them, but then they turn around and believe the universe itself revolves around their personal concerns. What about miracles? Every religion has stories of God bending the laws of nature to help individuals. A car accident avoided, a cancer cured, a job opportunity found. People see these as proof of God's love. But look closely. These stories are deeply narcissistic. They assume the laws of physics, the fabric of reality itself, can be suspended just to benefit you. Never mind the millions who die in accidents or illnesses every day. When something good happens to you, it's because you're special. That's what miracle stories really say. You are so important that the universe broke its own rules for you. If that isn't narcissism, what is? And then there's the way religion handles guilt and forgiveness. Instead of facing the consequences of their actions in a human, moral way, believers are told they can confess, pray, or repent, and God will wipe the slate clean. That's another ego boost. Imagine thinking you can harm others, but as long as you say sorry to God, your eternal record is spotless. That's not accountability. That's a narcissistic loophole that lets people feel righteous while avoiding responsibility. It puts their relationship with God above the real harm they cause to others. Religion also inflates human importance through prophecy. Countless traditions insist history is moving toward a climax that centers on us. The end times, the Messiah, the Day of Judgment, all of it is about human destiny. The sun could burn out in 5 billion years. The universe could expand forever. But religion insists the story ends with humanity as the main character. That's like a movie where every side character, every background, every detail exists only to highlight the star. Once again, religion takes our fear of insignificance and rewrites the script so that we're always the center of attention. Even morality itself is warped by this narcissism. Instead of asking what reduces suffering, what builds fairness, what helps people live well together, religion often turns morality into what pleases God. So the focus shifts from actual human well-being to divine approval. Eating pork becomes a sin. Working on the wrong day becomes an offense. Wearing the wrong fabric becomes immoral. These rules have nothing to do with actual harm. They are all about flattering the idea that our obedience is cosmically significant. The universe doesn't care what you eat. But religion tells you God does because it feeds the fantasy that everything about you matters to the highest degree. Look at the idea of hell. Instead of accepting that bad people die and that's the end of it, religions invent eternal torture. Why? Because it centers the drama around us forever. Our choices, our behavior, our loyalty, so important that they determine the fate of our souls for eternity. Think about the ego boost in that story. The fate of the cosmos hinges on whether you, personally, believe the right thing or worship the right way. Even the punishment is a form of narcissism. It says you matter so much that you can't just disappear. You must be eternally rewarded or eternally punished. Nothing about you can ever be insignificant. That's how deep the ego flattery goes. And it's not just about individuals. Whole societies fall into this trap. Nations at war believe God is on their side. Sports teams pray for victory. Politicians claim divine backing. Whenever religion gets involved, the narcissism expands from "I am special" to "we are special." And that belief justifies anything. Wars, oppression, cruelty, because if we're the chosen ones, then whatever we do must be right. Even when religion pretends to promote humility, it ends up reinforcing narcissism. Believers say things like, "I am nothing without God." On the surface, that sounds humble. But hidden in that statement is the assumption that the creator of the universe is personally involved in your life, that your existence is part of his plan, that you are so significant that without divine attention, you would be meaningless. Even the act of saying, "I am small," is built on the belief that you are still part of the cosmic spotlight. It's like someone saying, "I'm just a humble servant," while serving the king himself. The ego is still there, just disguised. That's why religion is such a powerful trap. It takes the natural human fear of being small, of being insignificant, and offers a flattering story. You are chosen. You are eternal. You are central, and it wraps that story in rituals, traditions, and communities so that questioning it feels impossible. But if you peel back the layers, if you look at it honestly, another way religion reveals its narcissism is through its obsession with human behavior in the most trivial details. Think about it. Billions of years of cosmic history, stars exploding, black holes forming, galaxies colliding, and religion says the creator of all that is fixated on what you wear, what you eat, how you cut your hair, or what words you speak before a meal. That is an incredible level of self-centered thinking. Reduces the vast, indifferent universe to a kind of stage play where human habits are the main drama, and God is the audience. Imagine thinking the fate of existence hinges on whether or not you ate the right food on the right day. It's like assuming the president of a country spends his time checking if you cleaned your room. It only makes sense if you start with the narcissistic assumption that your life, your choices, and your rituals are the most important things in the cosmos. And then there's the way religion talks about truth. Instead of admitting that humans are small and knowledge is limited, religion says, we have the truth. We know why we're here. We know the meaning of it all. That's another ego boost. It flatters us with certainty. We don't have to live with the humility of saying, I don't know. We can claim that the answers are already written down in ancient books, preserved just for us. And not just any answers. Answers that conveniently put humans in the starring role. It's not a coincidence. The ego hates uncertainty, and religion gives it a script that makes us important, wise, and central. This certainty can be incredibly dangerous. When people are convinced that God speaks through their religion, they feel justified in forcing others to follow it. That's why religious laws and institutions so often interfere with people's private lives, who you marry, how you love, what you believe. It's not just about control. It's about the belief that your way is divinely endorsed. And when you think your opinions are God's opinions, you're no longer just another human with a perspective. You're the voice of the cosmos. That is narcissism at its most inflated form. And look at how religion interacts with children. From the earliest age, kids are told that they are being watched by an invisible being who cares about every thought and action. They're told they are special, but also guilty, but also chosen, but also in danger of punishment. It's a psychological cocktail designed to make them feel that their little lives are the center of cosmic attention. Instead of letting children grow up with a sense of natural curiosity and humility before reality, religion traps them in a narcissistic story where everything they do is magnified to an eternal scale. It's like raising a child to believe that every move they make is broadcast to the entire universe. It's flattering, but it's also deeply unhealthy. Now let's think about how this plays out in everyday life. Believers often thank God for things that are just random or human-made. They thank God for finding a parking spot, for surviving a storm, for getting a job. But notice what they're really saying. They're saying that out of all the things happening in the world, God rearranged reality for their personal benefit. They're putting themselves at the center of the cosmic story. Meanwhile, when tragedy strikes, they either blame themselves or spin it into another ego-flattering story. It's a test, a lesson, a plan. Either way, the story is always about them. That's how deep the narcissism runs. Even when the universe crushes us with indifference, religion bends it back into a narrative where humans are still the focus. Think about funerals. In many religious traditions, people gather and talk about how their loved one is now in heaven, in paradise, in a better place. On one level, it's comforting, but on another, it's a refusal to accept reality. It's the ego's refusal to admit that we die and disappear like every other living thing. Instead, religion promises that your loved one continues forever, still at the center of existence. It's the same narcissistic theme. Nothing about us can ever end. Nothing about us can ever be small. Even death is rewritten to serve the story of human importance. The pattern shows up everywhere. Look at the way religions build their architecture. Cathedrals, mosques, temples. All designed to impress, to make people feel like they are at the center of a cosmic drama. These buildings aren't humble. They're grand, towering, designed to inflate the sense of significance. And they succeed. People walk into them and feel awe. But the message is always the same. You are standing in the center of the universe, the place where heaven meets earth, where your prayers echo into eternity. It's beautiful, yes, but it's also another way of feeding the narcissistic fantasy. And when religions talk about love, they often wrap it in narcissism too. God loves you personally. God has a plan for your life. Imagine the ego boost in that statement. The creator of everything knows your name, your thoughts, your feelings. Out of billions of humans, you are personally loved by the most powerful being imaginable. That is the ultimate flattery. Even if you feel small or forgotten in daily life, religion swoops in to tell you that you are never insignificant. You are always the apple of God's eye. It's like having an eternal fan club where the main member is the universe itself. Of course, the irony is that this very narcissism often leads to cruelty. Because once you believe you are chosen, special, central, you start to look down on others who don't share your faith. You see them as outsiders, unbelievers, sinners. Suddenly it becomes easy to justify discrimination, violence, even genocide. After all, if you are at the center of God's plan, then anyone outside your group must be against God. This is how narcissism turns toxic on a global scale. It's not just personal ego anymore. It's entire cultures and nations puffed up by the belief that the universe revolves around them. And yet, when you step outside of religion, you start to see how unnecessary all this is. The universe is vast and indifferent. We are small, temporary creatures on one tiny planet. At first that feels scary. It feels like a blow to the ego. But in reality, it's liberating. Because once you accept that you are not the center of everything, you are free to see the truth. You are free to marvel at the stars without needing them to be about you. You are free to care for others not because a God commands it, but because empathy and compassion matter on their own. You are free to live fully, knowing that this life is all you get, without the narcissistic dream of eternity. And maybe that's the biggest difference. Religion feeds the ego by saying, you will live forever. You are the center of the story. Atheism, or even simple doubt, takes that away. It tells us we are temporary, fragile, and not the focus of the cosmos. But instead of being depressing, that truth can be empowering. Because if this is all we have, then it matters even more. Our choices matter because they affect real people in the real world, not because they're written into some eternal record. Our kindness matters because it eases suffering here and now, not because it earns us points for the afterlife. That is real meaning. That is real humility. So when we say religion is the ultimate narcissism, it's not an insult. It's an observation. Religion takes the natural human fear of being small and spins it into stories that make us central, eternal, chosen, loved, and watched over. It flatters us endlessly while pretending to humble us. It tells us we're nothing without God, but then makes us the center of God's universe. It promises that our little lives are cosmic dramas. It promises that our deaths are not the end. It promises that our tribe, our nation, our faith is the most important thing in existence. Over and over, it feeds the ego while disguising it as devotion. But the truth is simpler, and maybe even more beautiful. We are small. We are temporary. We are one species among millions, on one planet among trillions of stars. The universe is not about us. And yet, in this tiny moment we can create love, kindness, beauty, and meaning. We don't need the universe to revolve around us. We can find meaning right here, in our connections with each other, in our curiosity, in our creativity. That's real humility. That's real strength. And it's something religion, with all its narcissism, can never truly give us.